You've been here, what, 2 days, but you already know a spot?
Caspian sounded amused but also impressed. Winnet had called him out to the lobby, and when she saw he was hungover, she told him she knew of a good place. Caspian wasn't convinced, but he followed her. With Kaisen driving, they pulled over to the barbecue restaurant Win had been to the day before, Caspian's mother's barbecue restaurant. As he was about to open the car door, Win rested a hand on his arm and stopped him.
Caspian, wait.
Turning back to look at her with a confused expression, he asked,
What is it?
When he noticed Win was acting weird, she wasn't meeting his eyes and wet her lips with her tongue like she was nervous.
Actually,
Win made eye contact with Kaisen in the front seat, but the man looked equally as confused. She hadn't thought this through one bit. Mentally, she was hitting her head, but in the real world, she had to remain calm. Well, try to anyway. Last night, as she laid in bed, she called Caspian's mother.
is it okay if I bring him over tomorrow?
The woman got excited.
Yes, thank you for calling ahead, Win.
If it's possible, you can close the store to other customers so you'll get to spend quality time with him.
Win suggested.
Yes, yes.
Win could practically hear the woman nodding over the phone.
Thank you, Win.
I'm just glad I can help.
And this brought Win back to the present. Caspian was still staring at her with a confused look, and she realized she had to say something before she scared him.
About the restaurant, I actually have something to say.
Go on.
Caspian gave a nod.
So,
She laughed nervously as she started talking.
funny story. I walked into this restaurant trying to find you and started talking with this woman. It's crazy, but she said she's your mother. And the eyes look just like yours, and she knew everything about your father and you, and she told me a bunch of things.
Win said it all in one breath. She couldn't breathe for fear that she would lose her courage.
Your mother wants to see you, Caspian.
Of all the things Win expected, she hadn't expected to see Caspian's face get red with anger.
Tyson, we're going back to the hotel.
He gritted his teeth and turned away from her. As Kaisen made to start the car, Win grabbed his hand, dangerous she knew, and yelled.
No, no.
I've done some.
Caspian ordered with an angry tone, and Kaisen looked back and forth from Win and Caspian in confusion.
I'm your boss, Tyson. I'm telling you to drive.
Wait, Caspian. Think about this. I don't know what the whole deal is, but from what your mother told me, you haven't seen each other in years. She tried to take you with her when your father divorced her, but he didn't let her.
Win immediately tried to explain. She couldn't let him leave without seeing her.
Let that one.
Win's face blanched at Caspian's harsh words.
Why do you always meddle in things that are none of your business?
What?
This was her trying to help. He didn't have to be so rude.
You know what? Forget it. Don't see your mother. Regret it for the rest of your life.
And with that, she forced the car door open, got out, and slammed it shut with a resounding thud as she skulked back to the hotel. It wasn't a long distance, just about a 5-minute walk. Win mumbled under her breath as she walked back to the hotel. It wasn't as if she expected him to be over the moon, but she also hadn't expected him to be so rude.
That's what I get for trying to help.
She tapped a folded fist against her temple. When she entered her room back, she immediately went to get her bag and called Raymond. He picked up immediately like he had been waiting for her to call.
What are you doing?
Laying in bed. Why do you sound so annoyed?
Nothing she did ever went past him.
I want to go home.
Then let's.
It was that simple for Raymond. If Win wanted his help, he was going to be there. From the tone of her voice, it sounded like she had an argument with someone.
Do you need some time or do you want to leave right now?
As it would turn out, Gazelle knocked on Win's door and asked her to do something. Hours later, Winnan and Ray were standing at the entrance of the hotel, trying to flag down a taxi. Her shoulders dropped as she leaned on her suitcase, making Ray worry and wonder if he should ask her what happened. Anyway, this was a good thing for him that Win wanted to leave. They had just gotten into a taxi when Win's phone rang.
You come back to the restaurant, my mom's restaurant.
Caspian?
Ray turned to look at her at the mention of the name.
Yes, all right, I'm coming. Stop the car, please.
Win asked the driver and turned to Ray with an apologetic look. At least she has the decency to look sorry.
Caspian, work.
She said before alighting the car and walking to the restaurant. Caspian's car was still parked out front with Kaisen in the driver's seat.
Where's he?
With a nod, Kyson gestured to the back, and Wynne turned around and saw Caspian come out with his mother.
Sir, sir.
Caspian was mad. More than that, even what gave her the right to think she could just meddle however she wanted?
Sir,
Kyson asked after Wynne was gone.
do you want me to drive back or stay?
Guys,
Caspian said at first, then changed his mind.
stay. I'll just be a moment. And,
He said and got out of the car. Smoothing the white polo he had on, he walked into the restaurant. It was empty except for a middle-aged woman behind the counter. She looked like she was expecting him.
Caspian, it's you, right?
As if on cue, her floodgate of tears opened up, and she came out of the counter to meet him. Caspian froze. His hands and legs had suddenly decided to not cooperate with him anymore, his mouth heavy even as he called out.
Oh my.
His mother exhaled a teary laugh and rushed to hug him.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
She switched between that.
I missed you so much.
Caspian didn't say much after that, as his mother took it upon herself to tell him everything she wanted to, about how she missed him, how she had been following up with his word. When she asked him any question, Caspian was able to answer with a yes or no. It wasn't that he didn't have a lot of questions for her, but he couldn't bring himself to ask her any of them except for,
How have you been?
at the end of their reunion, they exchanged numbers, and Caspian promised her he would call her when he got back home. As they stood outside the restaurant, Caspian remembered how he shouted at Wynne, and feeling bad, he called her.
Winnie, can you come back to the restaurant, my mom's restaurant?
Caspian?
Her surprised voice came over the phone, but she immediately added,
Yes, all right. I'm coming. Stop the car, please.
That made Caspian wonder what she had been doing. A few minutes later, as he came out of the restaurant, he saw her leaning inside the car as she asked Kyson a question. Then she turned around, and a breathy
Sir?
escaped her lips. Caspian's mother, on seeing her, hugged her and told her.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you know any good tourist locations, Kyson?
When they entered back into the car, Caspian asked his assistants.
Yes, sir. There's. And
Dwayne, if you don't mind, I would like you to come with me. Just as a way to unwind, but also to say thank you for getting me to meet my mother.
What?
Winna looked at Caspian, but he was already giving orders to Kyson on where to go. He wanted to take her out to thank her for what she did. Was it a date? Internally, Wynne was screaming her head off, and it was a miracle that she wasn't screaming out loud. Caspian was taking her out. Technically, it wasn't a date, but it was kind of similar. Wynne was going to take whatever she got.
You don't have to.
She remembered to say, even if she didn't mean that.
I want to...
Caspian turned to her, looking into her eyes, and Wynne wondered if he saw right through her. They spent the rest of the day together, and when Wynne got back to her room in the hotel, she felt like she had just been to the moon. A whole day spent with Caspian. Well, Kyson too. A knock came on her door, and she went to check who it was.
Ray.
Wynne had completely forgotten about him amidst the day spent with Caspian, and she felt guilty.
I'm so sorry, Ray. Caspian called me for something urgent.
She lied, but was it really a lie?
I thought you would have gone back without me.
Ray moved deeper into her room, looking tired.
The only reason I was leaving was because you said you wanted to.
His tone held a note of accusation, and Wynne agreed with him. He had every right to be angry.
I'm sorry, Raymond. I'll make it up to you when we go back home.
She would try to anyway.
It's all right. I'm sure it was important.
That made Wynne feel even worse. While she had been out with Caspian having fun, she left her best friend alone even after he asked her to spend the day with him.
How about this?
She said, pulling Ray down to the rugged floor of the room.
Let's put on our favorite movies and eat junk food, just like back home.
If Ray knew this was what it took for Wynne to pay him more attention, he would have done this. A night in with the woman he liked. He wasn't going to turn that down.
Sure.
He replied as he fell to the floor.
But I get to pick the first movie.
Whatever.
The next day, when Winnie woke up alone in her room, her mind went back to spending the day with Caspian yesterday. In the end, everything turned out for the good, and it was time to check out of the hotel. They were going back home today. As she rolled her suitcase in the hallway, she knocked on Gazelle's door. No response. Had she gone down to the lobby? Wynne wondered as she went to knock on Raymond's door.
What time is your return flight?
10 a.m.
Ray replied, He also had his suitcase packed and ready to go. He had planned it so it was the same time as Win.
I'm going to find Giselle and Caspian, and we can all head to the airport together early.
It was about 8 a.m., locking the door behind him. Ray and Win made their way to the lobby where a small crowd had gathered. Looking closer, she figured out the object of attention. Caspian stood with his hands around Giselle's waist as they answered questions from the fans standing around. Win's shoulders deflated, and she became sad and a little ashamed. Just the day before, spending the day with Caspian, she thought she had felt a spark, but realized she had been wrong, and even felt ashamed for not considering Giselle's feelings. Ray, who was standing close to Win, noticed the change in her attitude and threw an arm around her shoulders.
We can head to the airport first if you prefer.
He offered, putting her feelings into consideration. When Win nodded, Ray led her out of the hotel and flagged down a taxi that would take them to the airport.
Where's Win?
Giselle asked when she noticed the other woman's absence after the minifan meeting was over.
She already left for the airport with a friend, I think.
Kyson offered. Caspian had seen her while he and Giselle were greeting fans. He had seen a man put his arm around her shoulders, which made Caspian think that they weren't just friends. Pushing her out of his mind, his small group also made their way to the airport. Caspian received some disconcerting news on the plane, so when he got back to the country, he immediately went to the company where he summoned Jerry to his office.
What do you think you're doing?
The other man looked unfazed,
What do you mean, Caspian?
throwing the file he had received at Jerry. Caspian shot the man a glare.
What did you do behind my back while I was in South Korea? What is this I'm hearing about a new project?
Oh,
Jerry said, as if he just realized what Caspian was on about.
you mean the jewel design contest?
Yes, Jerry, you know what I mean? You didn't get my permission for that.
Jerry leveled a cool gaze at him.
I didn't think I needed to since Samuel already signed off on it.
His dad had given him the go-ahead. Why was he trying to punish Caspian for going to South Korea? Did he know about his meeting with his mother? No, he couldn't.
If that's all, I'll be leaving.
He didn't wait to hear if Caspian would say anything before leaving. After a few minutes, a knock sounded on his door, and Win walked in, holding a file.
Sir,
Tried as he did, he couldn't help the sentence
You left without us yesterday?
from leaving his lips.
well,
She looked away from his face.
you seemed like you were busy.
You also seem like you were busy with your friend.
He said the last word like an accusation, and Win's eyes flew back to his face in surprise.
Forget I said that.
Caspian waved his hand in the air, trying to play it off.
Why are you here?
As if just remembering, Win pushed a file at him.
I need your signature for this.
As Caspian read through what Win gave him, his face twisted into a frown.
Who told you to bring this to me? Give it to Jerry. He's the one in charge.
Win didn't know why Caspian seemed annoyed with her, so she left his office quietly. When she got back to the design department, Jerry summoned her to his office.
About what I asked you to do in South Korea. Don't you have anything to report to me?
Win knew she couldn't tell Jerry all that happened in South Korea if she wanted to keep Caspian's trust.
No, sir.